Welcome to episode 8, Secrets to Building a Brand on Amazon. Brand is the last moat for US and EU sellers on the Amazon.com platform. It allows you to differentiate your products, build trust, and justify higher prices. I'm going to repeat that last part. Justify higher prices. Building your brand is more than just having a logo, color scheme, or trademark. It always surprises me how little time most brand owners dedicate to building an effective brand. In this episode, we're going to dive into how to tell your brand story, establish your brand, and protect it. Let's dig in. I'm Jason Boyce, founder and CEO of Avenue 7 Media and host of the Day 2 podcast. With me today is Shannon Roddy, Amazon strategist, educator, business development lead for Avenue 7 Media. Shannon, tell me something good.
I'm so excited for this. If you didn't hear our last episode on brand registry, go back and listen to that. But, you and I are both so passionate about working with brands, developing brands, building brands, not only our own brands, but also helping our clients tell their brand story. And in some cases, build up their brand story. I think every brand as they grow, every company as they grow has an inflection point. And I'll give you a great example, Jason. Zappos, which actually sold to Amazon for, I think, $2 billion or something along those lines. Yeah. They had just been selling shoes online, right? They had just been a shoe company, just an e-commerce shoe company. And about 3 or 4 years in, they said, you know what? Customers really like it when we provide overnight shipping unexpectedly. Customer service is actually a really important part of our brand. And we're actually going to pivot from being an e-commerce shoe seller to being a customer service brand that happens to sell shoes. And that difference completely changed their brand. They are known for customer service. And I think that's something that a lot of brand owners forget is your brand is not about, like you said, a logo or color or product. It's about
an experience.
It's about being about something bigger than the product itself. And when you can create an emotional connection with your customers through that elevated experience, it allows you to, like you said, charge a higher price point, but also deliver greater value over the lifetime of your customers' engagement with you.
That's right. I mean, I love that story. It's absolutely right. Brands that sell an experience versus a product are enduring. They last longer. They add value to the customers' lives. And that's what it's about. How does my life get better? Or how does my life get easier? Or how does my life become more fun after I give you my credit card? That's what customers want to know. And that's the key element to the brand.
Yeah. And most people, most customers, but people want to be a part of something exciting, something bigger than themselves.
Yeah.
And the best brands in the world, Apple, Coca-Cola, Amazon, even, they allow them to do that. They allow them to be a part of the experience.
A smile.
That's big. Yeah. That's bigger than themselves. So Jason, there's a lot of things that come to people's mind when they think of the word brand. I want to know from your perspective, with all of your decades of experience in e-commerce and brand building, what comes to your mind when you think of brand and how do you define it?
Shannon, I get most excited about talking about brand. Again, like I said in the teaser, it's the moat. It's the last stand for the US seller. It's a way to use Amazon to catapult yourself into off Amazon sales, et cetera. I get incredibly excited whenever we talk about brand. But you asked me, what does brand mean to me? How do you define it? And anytime anyone asks me that question, I go back to a story. In 1964, Supreme Court Justice Potter Stewart was asked to describe pornography or to define pornography during a court case about whether pornography was protected by the First Amendment. And what did he say? He said, "I can't define it, but I know it when I see it." And that is exactly what happens to me when I see a potential client come and I look at their website, look at their brand presence online. I know it when I see it.
Yeah.
And it's because our brains are these computers, and I've got decades of experience looking at these brands and connecting with brands and building brands that happens. And I mean, that's how I see brand. When you see it, you feel something. You don't think something necessarily when you see a brand. It goes past the frontal lobe, goes into the amygdala part of the brain, and then it actually causes you to feel something, feel trust, feel excitement, feel pleasure, whatever it is. And that's, to me, is at the core of what a brand is. Shannon, you're great with the definitions. How do you see brand?
Well, you're right. I mean, and the story that I want to tell that encapsulates that is, look at the Coke versus Pepsi, like the Pepsi challenge, right? They blindfolded people. They gave them two little shot glasses, one of Coke, one of Pepsi. And in those blind taste tests, people overwhelmingly preferred Pepsi. And Coke was so adamant that this was accurate that they changed their formula and came out with New Coke, the most devastating debacle in marketing history. And the reason is people do not drink Coca-Cola blindfolded in little shot glasses. They drink it with that beautiful red bottle, with that beautiful swirling script. And what they found was that when people experience Coca-Cola looking at the can and drinking that bottle with their family, they actually experience, have an experience in that part of their brain that connects to emotions. And it gives them a greater sense of enjoyment than when they would taste test it in the blind taste test. So that's what you're talking about. So when I think of a brand, I think of the brand story. And like I said, it's that value, it's that element, it's that belief. Simon Sinek calls it a just cause. What are you about that is bigger than the brand? Really about impacting the world. Steve Jobs said, we're going to make a dent in the universe. That was their big statement. And what we do is we create products and tools that allow people to make a dent in the universe. And that just draws and attracts people in to want to be a part of something, whether they create anything or not, So that's what I think of when I think of brand. I think of, like I said, the story and sort of the beliefs behind it that elevate it beyond a product or experience, that it really creates that emotional connection to something bigger than you.
Yeah, and in this digital age, especially, there's a million different touch points that a potential customer or an existing customer can have with the brand. And it's really, really important that at every possible touch point within the Amazon platform, it's
Yeah.
your brand store, it's your product listing, it's your advertising, everything has to exude that in the images and the messaging and the product reviews and the pricing and the customer service, that high level of trust, that brand emotional connection. And then the same goes for your website. The same goes for if your product is listed on another e-commerce seller. At every single touch point, and you mentioned Apple, because Steve Jobs is really was the master brander. I mean, who the hell names this box with a bunch of circuit boards on it after a fruit, right? I mean, come on. And you can see the genius in what he was doing at a very early age with Apple computers. But that to me is also what it means. It's like every opportunity at anywhere where a consumer can see your brand, can touch it, the packaging that your product is delivered in is really important. Any of you who've ordered an Apple iPhone, it's like you feel bad throwing that package in the trash, right?
Yep.
You keep it for a while. It's so pretty. I'm just going to put it in the closet and
The
keep it for
unboxing experience.
right. The unboxing, all of those touch points should communicate what your brand is about. And so, I did a fascinating exercise recently, Shannon, where I did a presentation, and because Steve Jobs is the brand master, I researched and looked up some of his comments about what makes a brand in interviews that he's had, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
And then what was fascinating to me, Shannon, is that as I was reading through his elements in my head, my brand teacher was Rick Cesare,
Right.
DRTV marketing genius. Launched GoPro cameras, launched, the George Foreman grill, OxyClean, all of those. And it was surprising to me that the words were different, but they were talking about the same message, right? And so what did Steve Jobs say? Number one, dare to be different, right?
Right.
And Rick would say, what's your unique selling proposition? What's unique about your product compared to every other cow in the pasture, right? Number two is Steve Jobs did this masterfully. Always challenged the status quo, even if it meant cannibalizing his own products, right? I think he knew when he launched the iPhone, right? When he launched the iPhone, that the iPod was going to be in trouble because you could put all your music on your phone, and why do you need two devices? He didn't care. That goes against all masters in business MBA programs in the country, education at the time, right? It went against all of it, but he did it anyway. Rick would say, zig when they zag, right? Do something different, right? creating an experience. You talked about that experience that folks have when they get a Coke. You talked about that experience at Zappos. Zappos wasn't selling shoes. They were selling an extraordinary customer experience that built brand love and loyalty, right? And Rick's language for creating an experience: features tell, benefits sell. Focus on the true benefit of the product, right? And I'll just use an example of one of our clients, Melita Coffee Makers. We did their listings for them, and we have a couple of infographics, those alternate images, those additional images, where there's this woman who has a look of pure joy on her face with her coffee mug, and I'm holding mine because it's early. We're recording this early, and so it's that look that you get when you have that first sip of coffee in the morning. You're just like, oh. And what's amazing about the infographic is the coffee maker is not even in it. But what we are selling with this coffee maker is the experience on this person's face, right? That's what you get when you buy a cup of coffee. Features tell, benefits sell. Yeah, you got to talk about some features, but talk about those benefits. That's how you can get to, with your brand, what experience you should be selling. Number 4, Steve Jobs, design matters, right? Yeah. My words for that is make it cool, right? And Apple's cool. Everything Apple does is cool, everything. And so I think there's still an opportunity, and it doesn't matter. I don't care what you're slinging. If you're selling commodities, there's an opportunity to make it look cool and different and better. And you should take that. You should take that advantage. Number 5, stay at the leading edge always. How do you stay at the leading edge? Shannon, I learned a long time ago that I'm no Steve Jobs, right? I tried to launch products without listening to the customers, and they were abject flops. But the secret weapon to every small business owner who's building a brand is to listen to your customers. Yeah. Your customers are a treasure trove of data. They're leaving ratings, they're leaving product reviews, they're asking questions about your product. Identify the themes that folks are talking about that they love about your product. Identify the bad things about what's happening in your product that customers don't ideally love, and fix them. That will keep you at the leading edge with your products in your product category. And then the last thing I'll say about elements of a brand is authentic testimonials. Yeah. And Rick and I used to talk about this all the time. Rick, when he took on a new brand, would invite a dozen or so real customers who use their money to buy this product and experience this product to come to a hotel lobby, sit in front of a camera, and Rick would ask a host of questions about their experience with the product. When he was done, he knew what the branding messaging was. Mm-hmm. He knew what was wrong with the product, and he knew what was right about the product. And we, when I first sat down with him to have our first cup of coffee at the Issaquah Coffee House outside of Seattle with him, I said, I do that too. And he goes, "What? I don't understand. What do you mean? How?" I said, "I just do it cheaper. I just read what customers are saying about your product." Right. And your customers will give you authentic testimonials in the review when they rave about your product. Share it. Share that. So look, those are elements of a brand, Shannon. We don't want to make this I could talk about this for 4 hours. We should make a 4-hour podcast. You think people would listen? Probably not.
Probably.
But there's individual stories about all of these. Maybe you have a story to add into one of these 6 elements of a brand, but this is so important. It's your moat, folks. This is really, really important to take this advice from Steve Jobs, to take this advice from Rick, and to do the things that I've used and to great success.
I have a couple book plugs and a couple comments. So number 1, Delivering Happiness by Tony Hsieh of Zappos. He was the CEO of Zappos.
The late Tony Hsieh.
The late Tony Hsieh. It was really heartbreaking. He passed away a couple of years ago, but get that on Amazon, Delivering Happiness. It's a great book. It's a great inspiration for you to discover what your enduring elements are going to be as a brand. And 2, you mentioned Rick Cesari. You co-authored the book, The Amazon Jungle. If you have not read that, a great read, also available on Amazon. We'll have both available in the show notes. But, the 2 things that I was thinking about, Jason, as you went through all these is, number 1, it has to be authentic. You can't just create and say, oh, we're going to be about, the economy or the environment or helping this, and just have it be a cheap add-on. It has to be authentic. Customers can read through that BS like nobody else. And so I actually think it's one of the reasons why Amazon's private labels fail, is because they don't have any brand story. They don't have any brand purpose other than to create a cheaper knockoff, right? The other thing that I think, came to mind was, there's a great quote by the co-founder of Method. They came out with, this hand soap years ago on the How I Built This podcast with Guy Raz. And he said the most profound statement. He said, there are no boring categories. There are only boring brands. And I'm
Ooh,
like, oh my God, that was
love
such a
that.
great statement. It stuck with me. People have taken commoditized, boring categories and made them incredible. And if you want a great example, look at Starbucks. My dad used to go by the White Hen Pantry or Dunkin' Donuts or the gas station and buy a 99-cent cup of coffee every morning. It was a boring ass
And
commodity.
it tasted like motor oil.
and and Starbucks and Howard Schultz changed everything, and they charge 4 times the amount. And people said, "You're crazy. No one's going to pay $4 for a cup of coffee." Now you can't even get out of Starbucks paying less than $5 or $6 or $7 for a cup of coffee. So there are no boring categories. There are no boring products. There are only boring brands. And if you have a boring brand, it is your fault and it is your responsibility to change it.
Talk about a great example about selling an experience, Shannon. I love your Starbucks example, and I'm going to use that quote if you don't mind. That's a great
Please
quote.
steal it.
They sell an experience.
They do.
And how did they get to that experience? They listened to their consumers and they paid attention to what they liked, what they didn't like, what they were looking for. And that is really a key. And it goes back to a very simple statement, but a profound statement that Rick taught me so many years ago. Features tell, but benefits sell. What's the true benefit? What's in it for that customer? You can start with your product and build an entire brand around that experience.
And what Howard Schultz was selling after visiting Italy and these little, coffee cafes was the third place, the place in between home and work where you could meet with friends, where you could take some time for yourself and onward and also pour your heart into it. 2 great books by Howard Schultz if you want to learn more about the Starbucks experience. But I've given enough book recommendations for this podcast, so I'll stop there. Jason, when Steve Jobs asked Mike Markula, who was one of the original founders of Apple, who came over from Intel, Jobs asked, how do you build an enduring brand? And Mike Markula said, enduring brands know how to reinvent themselves. What opportunity does Amazon provide for brand owners to help reinvent themselves so that they don't become obsolete, unnecessary, and die with the times instead of evolving, reinventing, and changing themselves like Apple, by the way, the most valuable brand in the world?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think that the answer boils down to this, Shannon. And forget about reinvent. We'll come back to reinvent in a second. Amazon is a great place to invent your brand.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great place to what I call reverse engineer into a brand. I call it a great test bed. You called it a sandbox. It's a beautiful sandbox, right? Launch a product, put it out into the wild, read every review, read every Q&A, look at the brand registry demographic information, find out who that customer avatar is, who's the majority of your customer, and even to some extent, who are some of your niche customers? What are they talking about? What are they liking? You can put a product out there. You can get great real world feedback in the form of reviews, questions, answers. If customers are returning your products, they're required to leave a comment about why they returned.
Yeah.
Read those reasons for returns. And through that process, it's sort of product development and brand building at the same time. Through that process, once you begin to learn what experience your customers are having, what experience your customers are telling you that they wanted to have with your brand, you can fix your products, you can fine tune your products, and you can use those through a process called customer-driven innovation in order to make the next great product and build an entire suite of products with a brand over them. I think, you can test messaging on Amazon. The metrics available in terms of click-through rates and conversion rates will tell you a lot about whether your messaging is resonating with your consumer. Shannon, I've taken positive product reviews from products I've created exactly word for word out of a review and created a customer brand and created a messaging platform off of them.
Yeah.
Because I was like, oh, I didn't know that that's the experience that I wouldn't have expected to get this experience from this product.
And they said it better than you did.
They're telling it to you. They're
Yeah.
telling it to you. That's how you innovate. That's how you stay in the cutting edge, right? And that's how you build a great brand. You can test your messaging. You can test your visuals. If your
Mhm.
conversion rate's going down, that messaging isn't working, you probably need to go revert back to what it was before. You can A/B test the visual representation, main images, right?
Yeah.
You can even A/B test outside of Amazon. I'm forgetting the name of Shannon. You know this
Pick-fu.
group. Thank you.
Pick-fu. Yep.
PickFu. Sorry, PickFu. I keep forgetting the name, but you can use PickFu to A/B test visual messaging to help back end and reverse engineer into your brand. But again, nothing is better than identifying the product demographics and then reading every one of those customer touch points where they're giving you feedback to fine tune and build that brand. I think Amazon is
Yeah.
still one of the best places to do it.
And I would say the pre-sandbox to Amazon is social media, right? Because you can put out post messaging graphics all day long, right? There's no e-commerce involved in it directly, but you do find out very quickly what customers resonate with. So use social media as a pre-sandbox to Amazon. Take that learning and put it on Amazon and test even further. Jason,
Shannon, I want to ask this next question for you because
yeah, sure.
this is an easy one for you. What are some practical ways that brands can tell their story and grow their presence on the Amazon platform?
Yeah, one of my favorite ways is if you have a founder and either a founder story or a brand story, to tell that in a couple places. Number one, in one of the product images. Typically you've got like 5 images and then a video, so we do it in the 5th image. We tee up the main features and the benefit, what customers are selling, and then we tell them the why. Why was this brand created? Who is it created by? And it creates that personal engagement that the person is buying from another person instead of some nameless, faceless conglomerate, right? A+ content is absolutely a great way to do that. They even have a whole brand story section that you can add now. Video is also absolutely critical. So a video about the founders. I worked with a ton of food brands, at Marketplace Seller Courses before joining Avenue 7 Media, and we work with a fair amount as well. But so many of those founders have a story. I had this child who was allergic to everything, and I created this product so that my kid could eat stuff
That's
you know where,
powerful.
where before they couldn't. Yes Bar is
Yeah.
a great example of that. And so I do think there's all these different places through videos, video ads, A+ content and product images, and even the copy and descriptions. Tell your brand story. Why did you create the brand in the first place? And
Yeah.
those are the sort of 4 practical areas and places that you can do that.
Yeah, and the storefront on Amazon is a great way to do that as well. You can add your founder video there. You do a lengthy video. You can tell your brand story. You can talk about, you can go very deep on all your products to really communicate that message. And then of course, defending the brand via advertising is really a practical way to grow and protect that brand. Look, if an Amazon consumer searches your brand name and all they see on the search results above the fold is your brand name, it adds a sense of credibility, right?
I think so.
And it increases your conversion rates for sure.
I think it's like people walking into a stadium and seeing Coke plastered everywhere.
Yeah,
Know that Coke owns that stadium, that they are the dominant player in the marketplace. And I think even if you're not the dominant market share player in a category, you can convey that by owning the advertising space above and below the fold, for sure.
absolutely. Absolutely. We talked a lot about brand registry in the previous episode, Shannon,
Yeah.
some of the benefits there and the things that brand registry both will and will not do for your brand. One of the things it doesn't do is really channel control.
Right.
It's really important to cover this. Protecting the brand that you're building is really important. Channel control. Be the only seller of your Amazon product on Amazon, and enforce a strict policy that makes you the only seller. There is zero value to anyone else attaching to your listings, to your brand. Only things can go wrong. Very little can go right.
Yeah.
Kick off the counterfeiters, combat the imitators, maintain that retail price across all channels. Pricing parity across channels is really important.
It's
It may
huge.
seem crazy, but there's some negative impacts if you aren't selling at the same price on Amazon as other sales channels. But the really important part is maintain a reasonable retail price so that you can make a profit margin.
Yeah.
That brand is what adds the value and justifies that higher price as well. And of course, never forget product reviews.
So, Jason, in your experience, what are some of the biggest and most consistent mistakes that you see brand owners make in this area of building their brand or failing to protect the brand, for that matter?
I think the biggest mistake is just not putting and setting aside a significant portion of their time to think about what brand they want to convey into
Yeah.
brand building, right? It's easy to get mixed up into the day-to-day of, working with the factories, dealing with logistics issues, dealing with HR issues, and all of that stuff that comes along with running a business. But you have to block that time on your calendar to be thinking about your brand all the time. That's first and foremost. The folks that aren't doing that are getting beat by sellers and brands who are spending that dedicated time. Next, many times they'll focus on the product and how they can tie in their entire product family together, instead of, all the way down into the weeds, right?
Right.
A product development company and a brand owner sometimes, when I look for clients like this because we can really help them, is they're focused on the specs of the product, right?
Right.
And they think about presenting the product and marketing and merchandising the product with a factory spec sheet, right? Because those
Right.
are important things to them. They know
Right.
that an extra millimeter here or less of a millimeter there makes a big difference to the customer to the customer experience. However, they need to bypass the engineering side of what goes into that product and focus on what really matters most to the folks with the credit card, which is
Right.
what experience am I going to get if I give you my credit card, right?
Right.
The Again, back, I hate to beat a dead horse here, but features tell, benefits sell. I see day in and day out, entrepreneurs are focusing on features, 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 and
Yep.
not focusing on what's the true benefit that their product brings to the person with the credit card.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing. And you can start with a product, right? Focus on the experience that you want to bring across with a product. And then you can you can increase that or lift that to the level of a total brand across all of your products.
Yeah.
And it's just a missed opportunity, especially with brands and doing 100,000, a million a year. They just aren't there yet. And I love it when they come to us as clients because this is one of my favorite areas to work on with them and we can help them.
Yeah, they got a great product. I mean, again, look at Apple, right? We're selling the MacBook, we're selling them an iPhone, we're selling them AirPods. All of them work seamlessly together. You're not just selling one product, you're selling the experience. So, Jason, what are some final takeaways for our listeners today when it comes to secrets to building a great brand on Amazon and off Amazon for that matter?
Shannon, if you're going to survive and thrive on the Amazon platform today, you must, all caps, you must build a great brand. Building a brand on Amazon is more than just having a logo or a color scheme or a trademark. It's your
Right.
protective moat that allows you to add value to your consumers, build loyalty, and justify higher prices. It's ultimately about building an emotional connection and a level of trust with consumers so that after you build that, once they do see your logo, once they do see your products, unconsciously, without thinking about it, they trust that brand, they know that brand, and they start seeking your brand the next time they want a similar product. Amazon is the perfect platform to build, reverse engineer into a brand, to have a conversation with the Amazon consumer about building a best-in-class product and a best-in-class brand. Use
Yeah.
it, abuse it, because they're certainly going to do that to you, Shannon, as a seller, but use it. Use that platform. If you're not proactively protecting your brand on Amazon, it's being eroded by competitors and you're not getting the full upside value of what you've spent your hard time, treasure, and tears to build.
Absolutely. And if you have a great brand story, but are having trouble figuring out how to sell that brand story and tell that brand story on Amazon, reach out to us for a call. Love to have that conversation. So, Jason, how do people get in touch with us if they are looking to learn more about Avenue 7 Media and our team of very experienced brand builders and brand storytellers on Amazon?
Hey, if you're ready to start growing and protecting your brand on Amazon with a team of experienced Amazon operators, you can visit us at day2podcast.com. That's one word, the word day, the number 2, podcast.com. Lastly, if you know anyone else who would gain value from this podcast as they build their brand and grow their presence on Amazon, please share it with them. Thanks for listening and happy selling.